Hi, I'm Maggie, and this quarter I was researching helper inconveniences in on-the-go systems. So, to help motivate the problem, imagine picking up a coffee for yourself before work and being asked to deliver coffee to a colleague working only 1 block away from you. Um, Maybe you can imagine that, it's not that big of, it's not too much effort. You want to help a community member, and so you agree. And so these are the kinds of community-based peer-to-peer delivery systems that my research is focusing on. However, typically these community-based systems struggle because they can't afford high monetary compensation to incentivize potential workers to complete inconvenient tasks. So, for example, people aren't willing to spend a lot of time or a lot of effort doing these things for their peers, and that can lead to low and sporadic task completion with purely opportunistic systems. Another challenge is that potential volunteers, and so these are community members who want to help others, have trouble identifying convenient times to contribute. So they know that they probably could participate if it's convenient, but they have trouble picking out these convenient moments. And so on-the-go systems represent a way to notify users of the system. Here is a convenient task that fits into your daily routine and schedule where you could help a community member. And so this delivers from traditional delivery systems in that it only asks people to participate if it would require minimal deviation from their original plans or routine. And by decreasing the burden to participate, on-the-go systems expand the potential pool of helpers to those who can't commit a lot of time or effort to completing tasks. And paired with community members' altruistic intentions and a model of generalized reciprocity, hopefully these decreased barriers can increase participation in community-based peer-to-peer delivery systems. So specifically within on-the-go systems, a major challenge is ensuring that tasks are convenient for helpers. So this means that they require minimal deviation from their existing routine and involves a seamless handoff to the requester. And that's important because on-the-go helpers aren't dedicated workers, so they want low-effort tasks and are unlikely to continue participating if they find it too inconvenient. This quarter, I spent a lot of time on system building. I moved a lot of data and logic to the backend so that the system is more scalable and not hard-coded. It also makes it more robust for user studies, and I developed a new meeting point feature to try and validate one of my design arguments. And I'll go into more of the technical specifics of that later. And then I also ran a user study, and the purpose of this was one, just more general need finding of user obstacles because those aren't fully understood within on-the-go systems. And then also with respect to my meeting point, with respect to my design argument, I wanted to explore the contextual challenges that, make a meeting point inconvenient. So I wanted to understand what are those challenges and how can technology help resolve them. So the primary design argument that I focused on this quarter was that when selecting meeting points, on-the-go systems can incorporate contextual preferences by trading off with distance traveled in such a way that it makes tasks lower effort and ensures helper convenience. So to break down that a little bit, traditional delivery services, I guess, only really focus on minimizing location. So if there's a requester and a helper, it tries to make the task more convenient by just minimizing the distance that each of them has to travel. But there are also contextual inconveniences. So those are things like, oh, the meeting point is really crowded. That will make it hard for the users to meet up and do the handoff. Maybe the weather outside is really bad, so helpers have to wait outside in bad conditions, which can be really frustrating. Maybe helpers are being asked to go upstairs, or they don't have access to the places that they're being asked to go to, which can be really inconvenient. And so my design argument was that, maybe we can make a trade-off with distance, so actually asking helpers to travel a little bit further, but prioritizing these contextual preferences. And in the end, that could make the task lower effort. So an example of this would be like, oh, helpers really hate going to crowded areas to meet their requesters because it's really hard to meet up. So maybe let's ask the helper to go just a little bit further out of their way to avoid the crowd. And so like maybe it seems like it would be more effort, but it's actually easier for the helper in the long term because they don't have to go through the extra coordination. So to enable this, one of my photos isn't showing up, but I added this like meeting point functionality to my prototype. So when helpers are notified, they first like say where they're originally heading, and then they can choose like one of several meeting points that they would prefer to meet the requester at. And these meeting points were chosen by the requester. So the requester said, oh, I can go to these 3 potential meeting points, and then the helper chooses the one that they think is like most convenient to them. And the photo isn't showing up for some reason, but after they complete the delivery, there's like an in-app prompt asking them to describe the like contextual inconveniences of that meeting point. And so what I wanted to do here was like mostly understand like what the contextual inconveniences were, because we didn't have a good idea of that, and also understand like, are these actually that important for the helper? Like, are they truly that inconvenient? So for my study, like as I've been saying, the goals are related to contextual challenges, related to meeting points, understanding what they were, and if they're important. And in order to understand this, I recruited around 30 undergraduate Northwestern students, a couple grad students from Delta Lab, and not all of them were in DTR, and then I had them download my bite-size app, and then they were compensated if they ordered something from Tech Express. So if you order food from Tech Express and somebody else delivers the food as coordinated through the app, then as a requester, you don't have to pay for the food. And then also in this study, if you delivered the food, you could also pick up something for yourself. And this incentive scheme was used because the goal was to understand like the contextual challenges related to the meeting point as opposed to like the incentives of participating in the system. So in terms of findings, I learned that contextual challenges might not actually have a major effect on convenience. So for example, like users mentioned that like they don't like waiting in crowded areas, and it was challenging to find the other person, but only for a second, because then you could just communicate via text. And if the other person is responsive, it's like a 2-text conversation. And so like these contextual challenges can generally be like overcome quickly. But related to that, like a major source of inconvenience was like unresponsiveness of one party, and the uncertainty around that. So like, for example, if you're in a really crowded place, but the other person isn't responding, like then that's a major source of like frustration, like, well, what do I do now? And there's a lot of uncertainty about, well, now how long is this interaction going to take? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be waiting all day for this person. Are they ever going to show up? Am I going to miss the next thing that I've committed to, etc. So a lot of users described that as one of the most frustrating parts. And so because of that, I think next quarter I want to pivot to improving communication and ensuring that both parties are like ready to do this communication at the time of the delivery. And then another major finding, more in terms of study design, was that some opportunistic interactions were happening through the app. So people were checking to see if there were any open tasks, as opposed to like being notified like on their current path. So in the future, I have to design the studies to like better eliminate these opportunistic contributions. And then I'll also focus more on like reducing communication challenges between users, mainly unresponsiveness. So the main takeaways are just this, like, finding that uncertainty surrounding helper request or uncertainty is a large source of frustration, and that could be a good starting point for a new research question and design an argument for next quarter. And then also just to be careful about opportunistic contributions in my studies. Thank you.